Welcome guys to our first interview questions on stacks and queues. The problem in hand is valid parentheses. So this is a question that I found on LeetCode. It's a very good question to test your understanding on how stacks are implemented and how stacks work. So according to LeetCode, this is an interview question that you can expect or you can find from big companies like Facebook, Google, and many more other big companies. So let's look at this problem so that we can come up with a solution for this. So the problem statement says, given a string containing just the characters, those round brackets, those curly brackets, and those box brackets, determine if the input string is valid. An input string is valid if open brackets must be closed by the same type of brackets. Open brackets must be closed in the correct order. Examples below, we have an input of those round brackets. So here we should get true, and we have an input of all those three pairs, and then we have true again, and then we have a mixture of the round and the box brackets, and then we have false for that. So now let's go to our pen and paper so that we can clearly understand what's happening with this and see a feasible solution that we can come up with on pen and paper. Okay, so now that we're here in our pen and paper, so now let's see what this problem has for us, right? So we're given something like this, and here we should have let me just put it on the far left. So we have something like this and that. So this should give us true, right? So represent true by T. And then we have something like this and that. So this should give us false, and I'll represent that by F. So now let's just work with this because the same applies for everything, right? Okay. So yeah, what are we doing here? So we have to go through each and every character within the string because we're told that this is a string of parentheses, right? Hopefully I'm doing this correctly, right? And then we also know that the same applies for this one, right? So let's change color. So what we do is we first have our stack, right? So we'll have our stack S, and then what we do is the moment we see an opening bracket, right, we append that opening bracket within our stack. That's what we'll do. And then secondly, while we're moving throughout this string of characters, right, the moment we see a closing bracket, right, what we want to do is now we want to check that is this closing bracket the same, not the same, but then will it match to give us a proper pair with the last added opening parenthesis. So remember, like with stack we have LIFO, last in first out. So if you guys didn't look at the stack implementation, I'll have the link in the description below so that you guys can check how stacks are implemented and all that. And this is basically the main idea: last in first out. So this is the last added element, and it's also the first to go out, right? So we check if this is the same as this in terms of giving us the same pair. So if we then check, we see that okay, we then get something like this, and this is a valid pair. Then we return what? True. Right? I hope that was understandable. Now we do the same thing with the next string. So we have our stack S. Let me just change something darker. So we have our stack S. So we see an opening bracket here. We append that opening bracket. After seeing that opening bracket, and then we check if this closing bracket is the same as not the same, but then will it give us a pair with that last added opening bracket, right? And then we have that, and then we check, okay, and then we do get this, right? And then we move forward, right? While moving forward, we see that is this, we say a closing bracket, and then we check within our stack, do we have a pair of this, and then we realize that there's nothing that will match with this, and then hence we'll return what? False for this problems or this test case, right? So basically this is the main idea with how this question can be solved. So now let's look at our text editor and actually make life to this thought process here. Okay, so now that we're here in our text editor, now let's make life to what we were talking about in pen and paper. So before I get this thing done, pause the video, try doing this on your own, and play the video and then see if we get the same solution. If we don't and you did it somehow, it's also good because there's always more than one solution to a problem, right? And if you didn't find a solution, just look at the video and I'm sure that you learned something, and just know that we all learn somewhere, so don't hit yourself on it. So we'll say define solution as. So there's one thing that I realized that I forgot to mention, that if we have something like this, right, this is a important test case, that if we have something like this, if we have the length being odd, the length of our string being odd, we definitely know for sure that one of our brackets do not have a pair, and then definitely for sure we should return false. So here we say testing if the len of the string is even, right? So here I will say len of s mod, mod 2 is not equal to 0, then we should return false. And then if we do pass this test case, then we know that possibly we do have a valid parentheses. We possibly have valid parentheses, right? So here we'll need our stack. So I'll be using a list, but then for practice sake, you guys should implement your own stack class and then make everything manual as possible. And then what we'll need also is all the opening parentheses. So this will be a set of that, that, and that. So this is all the opening parentheses that we have, right? And then we need all the possible pairs or possible matches, right? Matches. So this will be a set of the following. We'll have 3 possible matches. So let me just make more space so that it's visible. So here we either have that with the following, or we have this one with that one, and then finally we can either have this one with that one. So these are all the possible matches that we can have in our string, right? So we have that curly bracket, that box bracket, and that round bracket. So now that we have everything right now, is now we want to go through our string and actually see if we locate an opening bracket and then we append it to our stack. So here we'll say for paren in s, and then we'll say if paren in opening parentheses, we want to say stack dot append, right? And then we append our paren. And then else, if that is not the case, it means that we add a closing bracket, right? So else, first thing that we want to check is if the length of the stack is equal to 0, and then we return false. So what is happening here is, let's say we have something like this. Let me just put it like that. So let's say we have something like this and that, right? So let's just make it even so that our first edge case test doesn't catch that. So if we have something like this, right, we're looking at a closing bracket, right? So the moment we're looking at a closing bracket, our code will jump to this else statement, right? And this means that there was nothing related to this one that was appended. And this means that this one will never have a pair, right? And they are not like placed accordingly, because everything should be placed accordingly like this. Even if we had something like this, they are the same opening. This is the same as this in terms of like they are both curly brackets, but then they are not like this. You understand? So hence we return false, because this will never have a pair. Unless this was the case, then it will be another story, right? So this is the, let me just leave this. So that is the test case that we're making here, right? So if that is the case and our brackets hold for this condition, now this is where we want to use our understanding of stacks, and then we take in the last added element. So we say last opening paren as equals to stack dot pop, right? So right now we want to check if this last opening and this paren that we in, which is the closing parenthesis, is not in matches. So if those two are not in matches, we then return false, right? Because that means that it's something that is not within the possible matches that we stated here, right? Hence you see that I used tuples so that I can be able to like test this like so. So if our code holds for everything here, we then return true, right? And then this should be our solution for our valid parentheses question, right? So now let's make test cases. Let's say S. Let's just make something simple here. Let's just make that. And then let's say solution, then pass in S. Solution, right? Not solutions, yeah. So now let's run this and let's see. I forgot an N. So it's solution, not solution, solution. And then we should get our result. What's happening here? Just clear this out. Okay, so it's not returning anything. Let's just say print. And let's see. And then we get our answer being what? True. So here you can see that we get our answer being true because this is valid. And then we can just add that, and then let's say that. So here we expect to get false, and there we go, we're actually getting false. And then now let's make another test case. Let's say that. So we expect to get false from this, and we are getting true. Okay, so we have this. Let's just, let's see, we're getting true, and this is our test case. Okay, so basically what's happening here is, okay, so let me just show you here. So what we should do before we return true is we have to check if the length of stack is equal to 0. So why am I doing this, right? So look at our test case. Our test case is that with that. So what's happening is this is appended to the list, and then we pop it out here on this line 23, right? And then this is a match, and then we're done. And then we append that one, and then we're done. And then our stack is still remaining with this two, but then we know that if these are not popped out, then it means that they did not have a match, right? And then for that reason we should return false, because that means that this string is not a valid for what we want, right? So now let's just test this out, and let's see if we get what we want. We should get false, and that's it. So hence we're getting false right now. And if we're to like close this, let's see, this should also give us false. And okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so this won't be giving us false because we have that and that. Because what's happening is we opened, and then this one and this one will be a match. This one is popped, and this one and this one is a match, and then that is proper. So I hope you understand why we're getting true here. Because let me just explain this one more time. So I hope this you understand. So this is an opening bracket. We append it to the list. We also append this to the list. So remember, our stacks work last in, first out. So this opening bracket is the last in, and this one is the closing bracket that we add. So we check the last in if it's the same, and then definitely they're the same, and then we remove that. And then now we're remaining with what? This two, and then this one is the same, we remove that. Hence we get true. So now let's go through this one more time, and then let's see if we understand all this, what's happening here. So what's happening here is, here we're testing if our string is even, and if it's not, then we know that one of the pairs there do not have, one of the characters there do not have a pair, I mean. And then here we have our stack, and then here we have all the opening parentheses, and then here we all have all the possible matches, right? And then we go through each and every character within our string, and then if we see an opening bracket, we append it to the stack. Else what we do is we then check if our stack is not equal to 0, because if it's equal to 0, then this closing bracket doesn't have a match, and then we return false. And then if our bracket or our code still holds for this, doesn't hold for this test case, and then we want to take in the last added item, we pop it out, and then we check if this one and this one are in the matches. If not, we return false. And then finally we check if our stack is equal to 0, and then we return true or false based on that which is happening here. So I hope you guys understood this, and now let's go through our time complexity of this question. So the time complexity of this question, because we're going through the string n number of times, because we do not know how many brackets we have there. So we're going through n number of times. So the time complexity of this should be an order of n. So this is our time complexity. And yeah, so I hope you guys understood and enjoyed this lesson. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hoping to see you guys on the next interview question and the final interview question on stacks and queues. Goodbye.